Alright, so I have a better mic now. So what we're going to try to do is make better videos. Although this mic is really nice, it picks up everything around me. I am recording this in the office currently, so you'll probably hear people talking in the background. Basically, I had just created a set of videos, tutorials for people in the office for our substance designer pipeline, ideas behind it, some basic steps on how to use it, how to make your own. That got me to thinking I could share this information. I obviously have to edit out a little bit. That's work related, but I like teaching other people, sharing. I really like substance designer, substance painter, so I wouldn't mind giving a little bit back to the community when Allegorithmic gave so much to me with helping me learn this process. So who exactly am I? I'm just another artist. I'm an artist at Red 5 Studios currently. I was in charge of creating our pipeline for Substance, which was featured on Allegorithmic a while ago, back in, August, I think. I had that little feature done. Really lengthy and a lot of me talking. But I think part of that, I was kind of unsure at that point of exactly what I was doing, because I'd only been in the program for 6 weeks at that point by the time I published that. Actually probably 8 weeks, but still, not that long. I was still very young. It's what I was doing. Not saying I'm an uber guru now, but just figured I'd share some of the stuff, some of the pipeline. So I'm going to try to make these videos short, so we can get through them quickly. So if you're at the office, or you just need to find information, you're not wading through 2-hour videos or something like that. So I'll try to keep them around 15-20 minutes, hopefully, if we can cover everything. In this video, it might be a little lengthy. We're just going to go over some of the basics and some of my thought processes. That's kind of the point of this, is the thought processes of things I have found, and things I like to do. They might not all be correct. Other people might have better suggestions. That's kind of part of these videos, is to kind of pull some thoughts together, different ways of thinking. But this is basically how I'm using Substance Designer currently and how our studio's using it. It could change in the future, but for now, this is what we have. So let's go over some quick basics. Obviously, you can go over to Allegorithmic's YouTube channel. Wes does a great job with his videos explaining everything. And so you can go watch those. They're little getting started tutorial. I always tell people to start there because it's a really good starting tutorial group. So I'm not going to try to just repeat what Wes did. I'm going to try to add some things, hotkeys and things like that aren't always gone over or kind of broken up. So I'm going to try to put all that information in one spot right now. And again, try to go over some of my thought process. But feel free to comment, add to the conversation. I'm always about discussing things and having a conversation. We'll see how good I am about that, because I'm horrible with social media. That's why I don't usually post on Polycount and things like that. I haven't posted since I was in college, because I'm really bad with that kind of stuff. So let's see what we can do here. Alright, so first up, this is Substance Designer, obviously. Program's open. I usually run it off Steam because it's easy to go back and forth between work. I have, I think, almost 700 hours logged, according to Steam, in Substance Designer. I only have about 4 hours in Substance Painter so far. That's kind of my next goal, is to learn that program. And we can talk about why I'm not looking into Quixel at some other time. So let's kind of start with the basics of opening a new substance. So where a lot of people get confused is you don't have to go back if you mess up this stage. So when you go to new substance, which is right up here, there is, let me cancel this real quick. There is the little plus button, which makes a new substance, and file new substance. Either way, gets you there. Whatever you input here, you can change at any time. You're not married to this at all. You can be completely done with your texture and then change all of this information. So real quick, I'm going to go over how to do that. So we'll leave it at standard. New graph absolute 512. We'll just change. We'll keep all this the way it is. This is default, straight out of whenever you hit File New. So we come up with this graph. So most of the changes can be done over here in your base parameter section. You can do over here, and then you'll also be doing in your 3D view. So let's start over here. So if you forgot to name it, all you have to do is right click, rename, and you can rename whatever you need to rename it. So test. Now when you save your package, you can save it as whatever, or it'll take on the name of your first graph. Okay? But it'll say unsaved package until you save it. I think it's there to remind you that it's not saved. So it's just always defaulting unsaved package. You can change it from there. Next, let's say you forgot to set your size properly. That's done over here in your output size. You can simply change all of your graph size just by moving these sliders. They go in increments of, you know, power of 2s. So if you have it at 1, you're at 2 pixels by 2 pixels. And you can always double click in the center of a number to actually type it in, which is pretty handy. So if you go to 1, it's, you know, 2 pixels by 2 pixels. If you go to 10, you have 1024 by 1024. And we currently can go all the way up to 4096 by 4096. Now you can't, this is one thing I would love to see them change, you can't do odd size textures, so you can't do like, you know, geez, what is it, 736, is that what it is? Those types of textures, 1536 and 7, I don't know off the top of my head, but sometimes I'm required to use those size textures and I can't work in that size in here. Maybe one day we can. You can always just resize the texture in the end. The other thing is this box up here, this red box, is where you can change it from relative to parent, which means it takes on whatever size inputs you're putting in. Or you can change it to the absolute, which is this graph is this size. So if we change it real quick back to relative to parent, you can see if we added a node, let's say we change this to absolute 2048, plug it in, and now it's like, oh, we're 2048. So it'll change it based on whatever other nodes you plug in. This is handy for sometimes for time saving, things like that. Also, the glorious part of this, which some people don't realize, is anything you create in Substance Designer automatically upreses itself. So if you have a texture and all of a sudden your art director's like, we need this to be twice the size, and you don't have a PSD that's twice the size, well, Substance Designer upreses and just recomputes everything for you. So as long as it supports that texture size, you'll be good. So then the last thing, if you forgot to do it, is your shader. So right now we're set to standard. So if you go down here to your 3D view, go down to Materials Default, and then Shaders. It's going to always be on Relief Default. This is new. It throws me off sometimes. So if your shader's looking weird, sometimes check this, because if you're using PBR, it'll look, everything just looks 50 times too glossy. So, you know, you can change it to physically based, and now you have physically based. Thing to note with this is this does not automatically change these output nodes. So usually if you're just at this point of the graph, just to make these output nodes, it's usually easier just to go ahead and be like, you know what, I'm just going to right click, create a new graph, and go from there. Because what you have to do now is you'd have to come in here and be like, alright, we don't have, well, we do actually have a normal. We don't have a specular, so now you actually need to change specular to roughness. So to do that, you double click the node, go to the usage tab down here, and you would go to roughness. You would just find wherever roughness is. Now this is a roughness output, and I would suggest renaming it and everything. So it's a few more steps if you forget to change the shader off the bat. And then if you needed to add a new one, you press spacebar and create an output. And then again, you would go add new item and go ahead and select, okay, we're missing metallic. So you would scroll down, find metallic. So now we have a metallic map as well. You know, do all the naming, so on and so forth. So that's how you would change it if you forgot to do it at the start. Now you can do it at the end. Alright, so that's the basics of that kind of stuff. So the next basic thing I wanted to talk about is the actual substance themselves. there seems to be sometimes some confusion when people are starting out with substance versus a graph. Best way I can explain it in the terms that most people understand, seeing how most of us grew up on Photoshop, is that the substance is your Photoshop file. The graphs are folders within your Photoshop file. So that's the best way to think about it. So this is really handy when you need to do lots of things that all are going to use, the same texture or the same thing. So let's say this test we were going to do was going to be for dirt. So we could call this dirt tests and then have dirt test 1, dirt test 2, and have all the graphs in one place. Makes it really easy to get to. Another perfect example is up here where we see body. This is a full character right here. So if we bring in the executioner, if he's even in here, I don't know. But this is a full character, and each one of these is one of his textures. So this is his body, this is his helmet, this is his backpack, this is his little back cape he has, and now they all live in one file. Now normally I would call that file executioner. Not sure why I didn't do it here, but what the heck? What was I doing there? Oh, that's right. This craziness, which is now one single node, so I don't know why I did it like this. Anyways, so that's another way to think about it, is you can use the power of the substance to organize things, because organization, we all know, is kind of key. You don't want things getting lost. And that's kind of the way I have everything organized for all of our graphs as is. If I can find one real quick. Let me find our masking nodes. If we go and open one of my masking nodes, let's see, metal damage. Let's go ahead and view that real quick. Alright, if you see, it has, metal edge scratches 02, spec edge wear, brushed metal overlays, and chip shadow. So anything that has to do with metal damage is living within the metal damage mask folder. So that's kind of one of the ways I try to think about the actual substances and how to use it to make things go all in one place and not have files everywhere. Next thing I kind of wanted to touch on was creating aliases. What are aliases? So the nice thing is right now, if you go under preferences, library, or projects, excuse me, they now have an automatic alias function. Thank you, Allegorithmic, for doing that. Where it's automatically going, you can put something, your user project, your default project, it's going to then be able to talk across your network, things like that. We used to have to do this by hand, like it automatically has version control, all that kind of stuff, new shaders. So what an alias is if I make a node myself on my computer, and then someone else in the workplace or one of your friends over the internet or Kickstarter need to use it, you don't want to publish the substance. You just need to give them the file, and it needs to know where all the files that connect to it are. So an alias basically is a folder that you will point to, name it something, and then anything that's in that folder, it'll know, and all it will look for is that folder. So in this, try to explain that a little bit better. So in this case, our alias is called Red5, seeing how it is our library. If I put a folder on our desktop, called it whatever I wanted to call it, I have all kinds of things open. This is awesome, by the way. The artist who did this, great job. So if we created a new folder called whatever, we'll actually call it whatever. We'll put all of our work stuff in Mr. Whatever folder. And as long as everyone has this folder somewhere on their computer, and they go into Substance, into those preferences we were in, so tools, preferences, library, project, sorry. Pointed it to that whatever folder, wherever it is, and it had all your stuff in there, it'll automatically look for whatever you named it. So if we called it Red 5 and everyone had a whatever folder or a test folder, whatever they want to call it, pointed it at it, named it this, or whatever name you choose to do, then Substance Designer will know to look for that. Now you want to do this at the start of making your project, not at the end. It can cause problems. So that's an important thing for your workplace. Or if you're going to be sharing stuff and you don't want to constantly be publishing nodes and sending them packages and then everyone ends up with way too much stuff, you don't want that. You want to just try to give people, the minimal node for them to work on. I know Wes does do a video, I believe, about this new feature because it's a little bit newer with the workspace properties and version control and project and everything. I haven't messed with any of it, unfortunately. So I don't know exactly how it works. But maybe someone else does and can make a video about it. So that should be that for this basic video. I kind of want to go over basic tools. We're already at 16 minutes. Screw it. Let's do it. Alright, so some basic things. Controls, let's say. Hotkeys that people don't realize. So you hit spacebar, you get your basic nodes. I call them God nodes, they call them atomic nodes, there's all kinds of nodes. Basically these are the heart of Substance Designer. These you cannot backwards engineer, you can't open them minus opening them up as a script. So I'm guessing these are like the hard-coded nodes. Okay, so that's spacebar. Most people are going to know that. What most people don't know are things like if you have a node and you hit Control-D, it duplicates it. Control-D to duplicate. If it's attached to anything, so let's say we had a blur node coming into here, it'll duplicate your attachments as well. So Control-D, now you can do that. So now you can branch stuff off really quick. You can grab multiple things, Control-D, and do that. So that's a handy node. Next handy thing is Shift. Shift you can pull off the tails and move them to a new spot. So sometimes you have, let's say this node is like this. A lot of the times people will be like, all right, I gotta move this one here and I gotta move this one, and it takes some time. It's annoying. If you go ahead and let me undo that, hold down Shift when you're on the node, you can take the whole thing with you, plug it into the next node wherever you're going. Really handy way to move stuff along. Another handy one is Control. What Control does is I'm no longer touching my mouse button, but it connects the tail to your mouse. So now you can hold down middle mouse button and pan, keep the little tail connected, so you can go ahead and connect it to wherever you need to connect. And the nice thing about this frame, nice thing about this is that it'll stick to your mouse. So holding down Control, you get the mouse out, hold down Control, click, click, still holding down Control, click, click. So it just keeps following until you let go and click, and it'll finally disappear. Another really handy, fast way to move stuff around. Another one that a lot of people don't exactly realize, or realize what's wrong a lot of the time. So let's go ahead and grab an actual substance here. Alright, if you actually have a preset template that already has your outputs, remember we were talking about changing outputs, you can right click, create outputs. It'll automatically connect all your outputs for you. Good way to start, and then you can just go ahead and start filling in the middle. Another thing a lot of people don't realize is automatically connecting these. So what I mean by that is you have your 1, 2, and 3 selections. So you can also get them up here. You have 1 being standard method. What standard is you can connect everything one by one. You can actually connect it wherever, so you can cross-connect things, so on and so forth. 2, it'll still expose everything, but it'll only connect things to things that are named properly. So diffuses to diffuses, roughnesses to roughnesses, masks to masks, so forth and so on. So if we bring this out, as you see, it brings all the tails at once, and it'll automatically go find all their homes, and they'll go ahead and connect. So that one's handy. And then lastly, number 3, which is compact mode, makes things easier to see. When you're in number 3 mode, again, it's a mixture of 2, where it'll automatically connect everything for you based on your naming. Very handy, very fast tool. Things to use, so get used to your 1, 2, and 3 keys. Other things that happen sometime is your information. Display connections. I don't know what the hotkey is for this. I seem to turn it off all the time. But what that does is show you what your actual connections are. But you can turn it on and off up here, along with timing, node size, all that kind of stuff. The information. Search for nodes here. Again, connections, that kind of stuff. I think that's the basic tools. Navigation, you know, you guys should get used to that automatically. Not that rocket scientist-y if you're used to using 3D programs. Oh, actually there's one last thing I'm going to go over. That's over here. A lot of people fail to do this. I don't know why. So if you double click an open space, you get your actual graph parameters. So this is just for this graph. If we make a new graph, you have other parameters here. So we're not talking about the base parameters. We're talking about the attribute section. I actually think this is kind of an important section. It's kind of overlooked. And it's really handy when you're in work. Oh, which actually, see, added one other things to this video. So, identifier, whatever it's going to name be. If you change this name, it actually changes your graph's name. Description, really handy, because then if you hover over things over here in your library, it'll actually give a description. So you can put, you know, whatever basic ideas. So if someone else is looking, you always have to think about someone else using your stuff. If you have someone else looking, they can see it and be like, all right, I need to change this, or this does this, I want to use this, you know, this doesn't sound right, I don't want to use that. Then they don't have to open it, things like that. All the rest of this stuff is stuff to help filter it down here in your libraries. So filling it out makes it really handy for people to filter. If you put in a certain category, so you can say this is the category of test, this is a certain type of test, this was made by, you know, this is a YouTube test. Okay, author, you know, S-Rich, all that kind of stuff makes it really easy for people to create their own parameters to find your notes, especially if you're going to be selling them or giving them to other people to use, even at work, so people can see who authored it. User data, things like that, just more things. Icons, I like to use icons just because they look nice. Unfortunately, I might have liked them, but I didn't do an amazing job at doing a lot of them. Like all the Red 5 ones are pretty much just the Red 5 logo. I didn't go back and render out little PNGs for everything. I would love if there was a more automated way of doing that, but unfortunately, it's just a tedious process. I had remembered that I was going to show something else, and then I forgot it while I was talking. Amazing. All right, so we're gonna wrap this up. If I remember what it is, I'll put it in the next video. We're at 23 minutes already. Hopefully this was helpful. Please leave comments. Again, this is just to start getting some of this information out there. My thought process, by teaching you learn more, so hopefully I can learn from the community. I got a lot of emails from people asking about that video I had done and like how I did things and if they could have my nodes. And I'd rather teach people how to make them than just give them away a lot of the time, because you're going to learn more in the end. So, hope you enjoyed.